Okay.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Sean, the physical therapy application coach, here with my man, the Book of Eli. How you doing, Eli?
Doing good, sir. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Good, good, good. So, Eli, you've got quite a story to tell between all the stuff that you've done leading up to applying to PT school, your
Mhm.
actual process of doing the application itself, and different struggles that came up there. But let's start with just tell applicants a little bit about who you are, give us a little bit of history of your background, and why you decided to pursue physical therapy.
Yeah. So with me, I'm in San Antonio. So the college that I go to is A&M San Antonio, and that's located on the south side of the city. With that, I went there because it's an affordable education, but with it being such a new university, it presented a number of different obstacles as far as resources, taking the classes. Some of the classes that I had to take for my degree plan were not offered at the university, so I had to take classes outside of the university that I was attending. And then there was no pre-physical therapy club on campus, so I felt really lost. So I really had to pave my way through this pre-PT journey. On the side, outside of school, I worked as a rehab aide at a hospital in San Antonio for 2 years now. I got to experience COVID. So that was very interesting. Got to see the unique role that physical therapy plays throughout COVID. We kind of served as a halfway house, helping patients go from the ICU to inpatient rehab to home. So that was another big part of my journey. And then, of course, when COVID came up, I had to be resourceful. I did everything I could so that way I could be well-rounded as an applicant. I traveled out of the city to gain my observation hours. Even prior to COVID, I wanted to be really well-rounded as a student too. So I started my research on knee osteoarthritis. And really what got me into physical therapy in the first place is I worked at a gym, and I originally wanted to open up my own gym, but I just couldn't be genuine with people because I was having to be a salesperson. So with that, I went into the scientific part of exercise, and that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Eli, one of the things that as I've gotten to know you, one of the
Mhm.
things I've really admired about you is you never play a victim, right? So you've never given up on your circumstances defining what your experience is going to be.
Mhm.
And so you mentioned some of the challenges you had with like prereqs not being offered and no pre-physical therapy club, limited advisement, things like that. What did you do in response to those things?
I so one of my quote unquote strengths, working with you, we kind of came up with those three strengths. The number one is the creative problem solving. So utilize my creative problem solving with the um, not having a pre-PT club on campus. I created one, so that way I can help students that come after me, basically taking my journey, compiling it into a club, so that way, you know, more people know what they're doing. When it came to research, there wasn't any research opportunities for freshmen or sophomores. It was only for seniors. So I approached a professor and asked them, how can I get involved? And, I really took initiative to overcome all of these obstacles, even with COVID. I mentioned a few minutes ago how I had to travel outside of the city because I called every single clinic I could think of in San Antonio, and they all told me they're not accepting anybody. But I knew that outside of city limits, they were a little more lenient. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can make a day trip. So that's what I did. Traveled to New Braunfels and then stopped at the Buc-ee's on the way back on my last day of doing clinical hours as a reward. So, it's things like that. So for sure, I am a big believer in freeing yourself from the victimhood mentality because that will prevent you from reaching any type of success. Because if you tell yourself you can't, then you can't. If you look for a solution, there's always a solution. So one of my rules is you are allowed to complain if you have done everything in your power to overcome the problem. If at that point you've done everything you can, then you're allowed to complain. But up until then, you need to come up with a solution. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's fantastic. I think, I mean, that's what's so electric or magnetic about you is people want to be around people like that who like you just you just bring the wood to the woodshed, right? Like you just do the thing. And a lot of times for applicants, like there isn't a structure that's there. You have to kind of go out on your own and make it happen. And I think you're just an exceptional example of that. So thank you. And I hope some pre-PT who's listening to this that maybe is thinking like, oh, there's no pre-PT club. I don't know if I'm able to do this. Like maybe they'll be inspired, right? And they'll get their little network started. Because were you surprised when you created your club how many other like-minded people there were that were hoping that there was something like that?
Yeah, for sure. So with A&M San Antonio, it's only been around for roughly 10 years. So the only resource that we really had was a pre-health society, which encompasses anywhere from medical school, PT school, PA school. So it's just an umbrella. And then with the kinesiology club, I was really involved with them, but they're so broad as well. So there was nothing specialized to guide pre-PT students. So when I opened up this new club, I got a plethora of seniors. So these are juniors, seniors, they're freaking out. They're like, I don't know what the GRE is. I don't know how to apply. I can't find hours. So, the demand was there. I'm really glad that I started that club so that way we can help them out. And then freshmen as well. Freshmen are really interested in it because they understand that it's such a long-term journey. You're not going to be able to be a competitive applicant in the span of 12 months. It takes 3, 4, 5 years, depending
Sure.
on journey. So yeah, the demand is there and hopefully it'll continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for speaking to that.
Mhm.
So we talked about now we got through your journey. You worked hard, you grinded to figure things out, and then it comes time for you to apply.
Mhm.
Right. So talk me through when you first started applying and how you felt like things were going, and how did you get hooked up with me at Physical Therapy Application Coach?
Yeah, so I'm a very long-term thinker. So my freshman year of college, I was like, okay, I need to start keeping track of hours. So I created a folder, basically kept a paper trail of everything. And then my junior year of college, so this past spring, I was like, okay, I need to start prepping for applications. So I kept looking online. I started watching YouTube videos. And then with those YouTube videos, I was going over like tutorials, how to access PTCasts, what to write about, interview questions to expect. And then that's when I came across you. And I believe one of the videos was talking about that you were about to host a webinar on preparing for PT school applications. So I was like, okay. And so I did my background research on you, and you're a
Uh
legitimate person.
oh.
You're an actual BPT, and you know what you're talking about. So I was like, okay, so let's go ahead and listen to Mr. Sean over here. So I attend your webinar, and then that's how I learned about your application process and your services. So as soon as I saw how thorough you are, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and invest in this because even though you're having to put a little bit extra money aside to pay for services and guidance, it's an investment well worth it, because in my mind I was like, okay, if I um, have these sessions and invest in it one time, only apply one time, I'm going to save myself money in the long run rather than having to reapply and spend another $1,000 next year. So I feel like it was completely worth it. And, you really helped me gather my thoughts, and, I had the experience. You just helped me, word it in a way to where it was, absorbable to the reader. So, you really have helped me get to where I am today, and being accepted.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for the shout out with that, because I think I love what you said where you have all the experiences, but sometimes it's hard to talk about those things because you've lived through the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
How do I condense this down into a moment in time? and we worked on a lot of essays, right? A lot of essays.
The
Uh,
schools that I applied to, there were like essays for all of them. I was like, oh
you got
my,
essays for your essays.
yeah. And then luckily with you, you kind of helped me with, uh, I call it like a chunking method. So we took the prompts and then kind of just broke it down into little sections. And I'm like, okay, how can I answer this section and then make it flow? But yeah, that was a lot of writing.
It
I
was.
was not, I was not expecting that much essays, but and then the PTCast essay in particular, you really helped me with that because you know, I had all these patient experiences, but I was like, okay, I was there for these patients, but I mean, what else could I possibly say that I was there, you know? And then you kind of just talking with someone, talking with you, um, just having that conversation of like, okay, well, what did you do? Well, what were you doing when you were standing there? And, you know, just kind of bouncing back and forth. And then that's how we elaborated on things to where it sounded really good. And it wasn't fabricating anything. It was just you helping me describe what was going on because I didn't, to me, all I see is, okay, I was here with this patient, but to you, from your perspective, you're like, no, you were helping move this patient. You were repositioning this person. You were, you know, mentally supporting them. So, yeah, those essays, you were a big help with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was awesome to see you come in and to see all this plethora of experiences that you have, and to be able to see how essay after after essay after essay, you can just paint a completely different picture of who you are as a person versus just numbers on a spreadsheet. And
Mhm.
I think that was what was so exciting to me is they got to meet the Eli that I got to meet over that brief period of time. And there's obviously people who know you a lot better than I do, but I feel like I got a pretty good snapshot into who you are as a person.
Mhm.
Um, and in the midst of all that, so you've got tons of essays, you're trying to finish your applications, you're taking prerequisite classes.
Mhm.
There's some tragedy that strikes in your family.
Right. Yeah. So my grandma was on hospice for over a year at that point, and you know, she was my biggest supporter. You know, she just there for everything. Um, you know, so she got sick first week of August, and my original game plan was to submit all of my applications by the second week of August. But with her getting sick at that time, I kind of had to push everything to the side because basically she got sick the first week of August. She continued declining for the next week and a half. So with me working in healthcare, I was really a big component of her care towards the end of life. So I was the one, along with my mom, because my mom's a nurse. So me and my mom were the ones, you know, rolling her over, making sure she's not getting bed sores, giving her morphine. Um, so basically, as my grandma is passing away and actively dying, I am taking breaks from taking care of her, typing my essays and giving that a break. I'm taking care of her. So basically, I'm bouncing back and forth between my essays and my grandma.
Mm.
And in a way, I think the applications were almost a coping mechanism because it was a lot to deal with because like she's the matriarch. She you know, she's a big reason why I'm here today, you know, doing what I do. I mean, she's done so much for me, and you know, I know that she would be so proud, and I had talked to her about everything. And you know, I think I may have told you that one of her, you know, one of the last things she told me before she became very non-responsive is you'll do good, because one of the last conversations we had was about me writing my thank you notes to my references. So she was like, did you write your letters yet? And you know, and that was, you know, the weekend before she got really sick. So leading up to that, you know, she tells me you'll do good, and that gave me kind of the motivation I needed to pull myself together and complete my applications. So first 2 weeks were really rough. She passes away August, second week of August, week before school starts.
Mm.
So she passes away. The week after is the rosary and the funeral. She was laid to rest on a Wednesday, and my first day of class was on Thursday. So I did not have time to grieve. So that first week of, that first month of school was really, really rough for me. And then, of course, during all this time, I still have not submitted my applications. So everything was pushed off to the side. I was like, okay, I need to be there for grandma. I just needed to be there for my family because it was a really, really difficult time for us. So the week after she passes away, I start submitting my applications, and so I was able to carry out the process. Unfortunately, I submitted my applications a little later than I would have liked to, but in this circumstance, really, I think, what can you do? With Incarnate Word and Texas State, I submitted, I believe, those applications first. So my process was, okay, this situation happened to me. I need to take a step back and think strategically now, because I'm thinking, okay, which deadlines are due first? So I submitted those before any others. And I also made sure to submit the applications where I felt like I had a better chance of getting into those schools. So for my reach schools, I didn't submit those until like September. But for the schools that I really was prioritizing, I submitted those as soon as I could. So yeah, that was my journey with the family emergency and the passing of my grandma, and having to balance everything out and just make sure that I make her proud, because I know she is looking down on me, and she would be over the moon. I just know she'd be like bouncing off the walls with her walker, like with just the conversation that we'd have. I can't even imagine. So yeah, but
Thank
it
you
is.
for being transparent and sharing that. And again, my condolences to your family. It's never easy, right? Like, I mean, she was on hospice for years. We knew
Yeah.
it was coming, but
Mhm.
it doesn't make it any easier when it happens.
Yeah, and it was so like abrupt, because one day she's functioning, the next day she like declined.
Yeah.
And my original goal was to get into PT school before she passed away. Obviously that didn't happen. If she had stayed another 3 weeks, she would have seen me get my offer for an interview, because literally like 3 or 4 weeks after she passes, I get the offer for an interview. And then, a couple weeks after that, I get accepted. So, I mean, it was so close, but yeah,
She
just
knows. She
yeah,
knows.
she does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Eli. And I think you bring up a lot of good points. I feel like there's always these just life circumstances that come in applicants' lives. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's technological issues, sometimes it's logistical issues with being able to take prerequisites. Like, when the critical moment comes, don't be shocked if there's a setback that comes. And I think that's hard for applicants, because they're like, this is the most important time. I need everything to go
Oh
exactly
yeah,
perfect.
and I think I told you about, yeah, because I believe I told you how I needed to take pre-calculus to take my physics class, because the issue with A&M was they only had one section of the physics class for the entire university. So I got placed on the wait list, and I needed those prereqs to apply for school, for PT school. So I'm like, okay, where can I take this class? So Alamo Community Colleges says we have a physics course, but you need to take a pre-calculus course in order to get in as a prerequisite. So I'm like, I don't know if I can take pre-cal. So I tried to take pre-cal. I drop it over the summer. Now I'm like, okay, I'm submitting these PT school applications. I'm like 60% done with them. I don't want to give up on it. So I applied to UTSA in order to take my physics classes. I get in the week before school started, and I got the last seat for the class. So, and it just a freaky note here. The day grandma passed away was the day I got accepted to UTSA. So she did her magic, I swear. So I was like, because they were telling me I
She
wasn't
made a
going to be able to
call when
start.
she got up there.
Yeah, I swear, like literally within hours, because they were telling me I wasn't going to get into the class. I was going to start school after the course had already started. So it was like
Drama. Oh, it froze.
there was no way that wasn't I could submit my applications. So now I'm still eligible to start PT school next fall because I was able to do this. So yeah, that was a major stressor because I did not think I was going to be able to take the physics class, but everything worked out. And just shows that sometimes you need a plan B, a plan C, and maybe even a plan D.
And a
But
little bit of a miracle from grandma.
right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
it'll happen. You just need to make sure to think outside the box. So
Right.
it goes back to the no victimhood mentality, and I wasn't going to complain unless I absolutely could not get into the class. So
Sure.
I
Sure.
did what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's always good too to remind applicants that, everyone's kind of across the board. You and I have talked and both believe in a higher power, right? And I think as far as that goes, there does come a moment when in these critical junctures in our life when we have to say, I have done everything I can to make this work. And then there's doors that open and you just have to be grateful, right? And I think that's whether you believe in just the universe or God or whatever, right? I think showing appreciation in those moments when things work out is crucial because invariably something comes up and then you have to fight through it and then it's okay and it resolves. So we've gotten to interviews, right? So where did you ultimately decide that you're going to go to PT school?
So Incarnate Word is the school that offered me an interview, and with Incarnate Word being in San Antonio, it's home. So, you got the convenience of it. I live like 10 minutes down the street from the school, which is wonderful. It's right next to a Gold's gym, and I like to work out. So they give us a free membership to Gold's, and it's just all these little things that just line up. So it fit perfectly. And then another thing with the school itself, so the actual curriculum, not just the superficial things, it's a problem-based learning curriculum. So they don't teach you to regurgitate the material that the professor teaches you. So you are actively applying the concepts with patient cases. So you are, taking this knowledge that you learn in lecture and then being presented a patient and you're learning how to treat them. And then, another thing that I really like about Incarnate Word is they have a big emphasis on service. So they have a community clinic, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. So between the convenience and then the school itself, that's a big reason why I just went ahead and accepted the offer once I got it.
Yeah. And how does that feel? It's time. All these
Oh my
years
goodness,
coming
yeah,
together.
I know it was like, and I don't know if I ever told you that, there was a point where I didn't see myself getting anything higher than an associate's because, my aunt and I were talking like senior year of high school. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'm capable of doing anything more than an associate's. And, I've thought about being a PTA because that's a 2-year degree. So she told me, well, I think you're really selling yourself short here. I think you can be a physical therapist. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, I think you can get a doctorate. I'm like, I don't know. So, yeah, so it just takes one person to put you into that direction. And yeah, it was an amazing feeling because if you had told me in high school that I would be accepted to a doctorate program, I would have laughed at you. So when I saw that letter, I was like, it's happening. And then first thought I had was, of course, grandma. I'm like, she'd be just ecstatic, just over the moon about it. And then, there's happy tears, there's, relief, there's, because when you overcome so many things, I try not to put myself into that victimhood mentality, but I also acknowledge that, I had to do a little bit more than some people usually have to do. So it was like a breathing moment, and I was so grateful. And I was like, okay, I'm
You froze there.
yeah.
Okay. But you were so grateful was the last thing I heard you say.
Right. Um, so I think that was pretty much it. It's just
Just
I'm so
grateful.
grateful.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Everything paid off. I mean, it's such a the feeling you get when you see that letter and your hard work is reflected in those words. It's amazing. So yeah, very, very,
You
very
can't
happy.
buy that. You really
Oh
can't
no,
buy it. No.
no, you can't. Yeah,
It only comes from blood, sweat, and tears and a little bit of prayer, right? So, or a lot
right.
of prayer, actually, not a little bit, a lot of prayer. So,
Oh yeah,
um, well, Eli, thank you so much for being transparent and sharing all these things. Um, Last parting question I want to give is, how do you feel like, what advice would you give to pre-PT students coming up in the ranks right now? What would you share with them?
oh geez, there's so much I could share. I mean, I would say the one thing to prioritize above all the other advice that I could give is to plan ahead and understand that this isn't something that happens overnight. Because I think one mistake that a lot of applicants make is they think I can do this in a couple months. I'll become this person that can be qualified enough for a doctorate program in the span of 6 months. I mean, that piece of advice of just planning ahead and understanding that there are so many steps that you need to take and to be realistic about that, I think would help a lot of applicants and help them not be disappointed when something doesn't go their way. So, that's one mistake that I really see is rushing it and then being surprised when they don't get in. So, slow and steady definitely wins this race for sure.
I agree. And it makes it a lot easier if you have a coach when you show
Oh
up
yeah,
and you put in the work instead of, hey, can you fix this for me? And like,
right.
no.
Yeah. You gotta have something to
Yeah.
present. And it's like I said to someone last week, you can't spoon feed the experience you need to go into doctorate program. You
No,
can't hand that to somebody. That is something that you need to make for yourself. So yeah, that would be my piece of advice for anybody.
excellent. Excellent. Well, Eli, it's been a treat to really have you on, and you've shared some great pearls of wisdom and some tender experiences, and appreciate you just taking the time. And I'm so excited to see how everything goes for you at Incarnate Word, and you've got a very bright future ahead of you. So you're a part of the physical therapy application coach family for life. So if you've got any questions or concerns or things that come up,
Mhm.
feel free to reach out. Don't forget to look into all those resources about how to make the jump from pre-PT to SPT. And
Mhm.
don't be shy. If you got stuff that comes up, I'm always here to help.
Sure. I appreciate everything. Forever grateful for you.